Hey, welcome back to Becky's Garden Paradise. So it's been a overcast, cool, rainy day, so it took me a while to get myself motivated, but I'm finally in the kitchen. I have onions that I need to preserve, so I'm gonna pickle some red onions in the refrigerator and show you how I do that. And I also am gonna chop some onions that I'm gonna freeze. So it'll be kind of like saving myself some time whenever I go to make homemade salsa or any relishes or anything in the future, because one of the most time consuming parts of canning for me is the prep work. So kind of trying to get myself a step ahead and also save my onions before they go bad, because in Florida we have a lot of heat and humidity, and so onions don't store as well as they do in places up north. So in this small saucepan, I have 4 cups of water and 2 cups of white vinegar, along with 3 tablespoons of pickling salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I'm just heating this up. It doesn't have to come up to a boil. It just needs to be warm to hot. So I'm going to stir the salt and sugar in. Heating it also helps dissolve the salt and sugar, and I'll be using this in my pickled red onions. So I have the canning salt that I'm using here, and then the sugar, obviously. So I like to use canning salt even if I'm doing refrigerator pickles, because sometimes the iodized salt will cause discoloration and things. So I just wanted to point that out. So I have this bag of red onions here that I wanted to show you. If you leave onions sitting out, a lot of people store these. When I buy onions, I usually put them in the refrigerator. I use one of my produce drawers specifically for onions so that they'll last longer. But you can see how these are sprouting, so they definitely need to be preserved, if not used, very soon. So they're small red onions. I'm going to slice them thin into rings, and then once I slice them thin into little rings, I'm going to put them in this quart-sized jar. So I know my pickling solution is probably more than enough for this quart jar. I just wanted to make sure that I had enough, and if I have extra, then I can go get a pint jar and have a quart and a pint in the refrigerator. So one of my friends, Denise, recommended pickled onions to me. She said that they go great in tacos, and I've seen, like, since she told me about them, because I hadn't heard of pickled onions before, I see that they're also popular to put on homemade pizza. You can put them in salads, put them on sandwiches, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be awesome for quick weekday meals. Okay, so I used about half the bag of onions, maybe a little less. And I ended up cutting a lot of them, like slicing the onion in half. So cutting it into half rings. Some of them are the whole ring, some of them are half. And I tried to cram them down in there as much as I could. So I used this spoon to push them down, make room to keep adding more. So I went and got one of my canning funnels so that I can bring it over here and add the pickling dilution. It did make my eyes tear up cutting up all those onions. One thing I find is that when you're cutting onions that are at room temperature, at least with me, that's when my eyes get teary. If you're cutting refrigerated onions, it doesn't seem to happen as much. So I'm just going to add, let me see, doing it one-handed. So I'm going to add the brine. Just want to move it further away from the edge and slowly pour it in so you don't make a mess, Becky. And you just see it coming up. That's good. Alright, so you can see I still have plenty more. So that means I can make more pickled onions, which is cool. I'm down with that because I love onions. And I'm sure, yeah, it's warm. They're going to be great. So I'm just going to push them back down in there. And I have plenty of onions because I had this bag and I have another bag of red onions. And then I have another bag of white onions or sweet onions that I'm going to be chopping and freezing. I might chop and freeze some of the red ones as well. Because I got one out the other day to use and it had a yucky side that had to be cut off. I showed you the two that were sprouting in this bag. So I'd rather freeze them than lose them. So this is one jar down. I'll let it sit. The recipe that I found online said to let it sit for like an hour. And I figure that's just to let it cool. Like, it wasn't boiling, but it's definitely warm to the touch. So, and then once I let it sit for, you can hear the onions got me sniffing and everything over here. So I'll use one of these plastic jar lids. I'll put that on it when I put it in the refrigerator. Alright, so you can see the jar that I filled just earlier on the left and how it changes to red, so the brine will turn red. That's normal. And then with the rest of that bag of small red onions, I was able to fill another quart jar. So I'm getting ready to fill that with brine and top them both off. Super exciting. You don't need an excuse to have tacos, but this really gives me an excuse to have tacos this week. So this will, depends on who you ask, but it'll last a couple weeks. You know, safe amount of time. Some people say a month, but at least a couple weeks in the refrigerator. I can't wait to try them. The recommendations I saw said to let them sit for like overnight. I know some people, you know, if you get caught in a bind, you know, you could do them the morning of. But I think it's better if you wait overnight to 24 hours. So I'm just topping it off. And then I'm going to give my nose a break from the onion fumes, and then I'll get to chopping onions for the freezer. And you can, like I said, chop them, and it just, you know, they sell diced onions and bell peppers in the grocery store. But if you do it yourself, you know, save money, save your onions. If you have more onions than you know what to do with, you can use them canning, you can use them in whatever recipes you use fresh onions in. Alrighty, so here we go. 2 jars of pickled onions. I'm super excited. So these are the sweet onions or yellow onions that I have to dice and freeze. I'm going to put them up so that the next time I'm canning salsa or relish or something that I need diced onions for, I'll have them already prepared in the freezer and I can just measure them out and add them to my recipe. And like I said, you know, can't really let onions sit out for too long. They don't store well here in Florida because of the heat and humidity. So you can see some of them are sprouting, and this one right here looks like it's not doing too good. I'm probably gonna have to throw that one away, but I'm gonna peel them and remove the middle section that started to sprout. I've used the middle section, you know, that has a little bit of green in it when I'm cooking, but it's kind of a different texture. Reminds me almost like a flower petal, you know, where the onion's sprouting at. So I'm gonna pull those middle sections out with my knife, and then I have this handy dandy onion dicer. I use it for other things. I've used it for garlic and peppers also, but I got it from Walmart. So it's a chopper. You lift it up, place the onion on the grate, push it down, it chops it, catches it in this bottom section, and you can see that it measures the ingredients, which I'm not really going to be worried about the measurement. It's good if you're measuring a specific amount for a recipe that you're making right then, but I'm going to be putting them straight into freezer bags. So I'll get to work with these and show you how much diced onions I end up with. Alright, so I finished that bag of yellow onions. I did have to throw away 3 or 4 of them because they were gross. One of them was a total onion bomb, just a ball of rotten onion juices, which is disgusting. And I'm not taking any chances, you know. If they weren't firm, I threw them away. So I ended up with about maybe like a quarter or a third of a gallon-sized freezer bag of diced yellow onions. I'm gonna freeze. This is just one of my little hacks or cheats that I use to make it easier to pack stuff into gallon-sized freezer bags. So this is a 1-gallon pitcher from Tupperware. Anyways, and it's kind of, you know, oval shaped, as you can see, so perfect for the freezer bag. Now I have my last bag of red onions. If they're good, firm, no sprouts, I'm going to put them in the refrigerator so that I can use them fresh for salads and stuff like that. But any of them that are sprouting, I saw a couple in here, I'm going to go ahead and add to the diced yellow onions and freeze them to save them. So you can see I've sorted them. Most of them are fine, and I'm going to put them in the refrigerator to keep them to use fresh. And then I just had a few that are sprouting, so those I'm going to go ahead and add to the diced onions. Alright, so I think I did pretty good once I put the diced red onions in with the yellow diced onions in the freezer bag and flattened it out, because I always flatten my bags out when I put them in the freezer. It's pretty full. Alright, so I'm excited. This will make my next canning day much easier. And then you can also use it in anything from meatloaf to omelets, casseroles. So anything that you would use diced onions in, you can just measure out what you need from this bag. So one of the reasons that I do this is because I try not to waste. Try to live frugally, and so when you waste things, you know, that's just wasting money, throwing money in the trash. So I try my best not to waste, or to waste as little as possible. Like today I did have to throw away like 4 onions, but I saved the rest, because once they start sprouting, you don't have much time before they're probably going to go bad. So I'm glad I was able to save these onions. It'll save me money in the future. Alrighty, so thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a good day.